This is Anthony Dowell with the Mid-Atlantic Center for Emergency Management and Public Safety at Frederick Community College, and I am the curriculum developer for the GIS 1 Introduction to GIS and GIS 2 Advanced Topics in GIS and Remote Sensing courses under the Information and Communications Technology pack. In an effort to help instructors that are either new to GIS, into the GIS curriculum, I'm providing a series of brief tutorials that are going to help you understand how to access open data resources, which is the subject of today's session. And I'll be following up with sessions on working in ArcGIS Online, working in ArcGIS Desktop, including ArcMap and ArcCatalog, and finally working in ArcGIS Pro. So for today's session, exploring open data resources and accessing data that you can use for your own activities and for your students' benefit, I'll be showing you how you can get to some of the most beneficial open data portals that are out there specific to Homeland Security and emergency management. And I'm going to include 3 key portals in this, although there are many out there. I'm going to include HIFLD Open, which is managed and maintained by the Department of Homeland Security, Maryland IMap, which is managed by the Department of Information Technology, and the FEMA Hub site, which is FEMA's Open GIS portal. And understanding your options for open data and getting a handle on what's out there is really important, because as you dive into the GIS curriculum, you'll note that each course has a workbook. Within those workbooks are guided activities, as well as the data needed for those activities. And in the GIS lesson plans, you'll see that there are also recommendations for instructor-developed activities, demonstrations, and guided exercises. And so the data that you'll see today and that you can find in various places that I'll note can be a great resource to help you develop your own exercises and demonstrations, but they can also be great in helping you to enhance or update the exercises provided through the textbooks and the workbooks. And this can help you to tailor your lessons to specific topics or disciplines that are of interest, based on current events, or also helping to tailor your activities to your students or your school's geography, and using data that's specific to maybe your county or your city to help make the exercises more interesting and more relevant to your students. And just in general, it's good for students to become familiar and comfortable with open data, getting out there to find their own data and exploring and assessing data sources, exploring metadata, finding information on when data was created, who was responsible for creating and maintaining it, when it was last updated, things like that. And then also getting the data from these portals into the environment that they want to work in, whether that's ArcGIS Online, ArcMap, or ArcGIS Pro. And again, there are a lot of options out there, as many agencies and organizations, be it at the federal, state, county, municipal level, have their own open source portals, some that are specific to GIS and geospatial data. But again, today we're going to cover 3 of them. And I'm going to start with HIFLD Open, and HIFLD stands for Homeland Infrastructure Foundation Level Data. And so the HIFLD site is actually made up of 2 separate arms. And so there's HIFLD Open, which you can see up in the top here. It can be accessed at HIFLD, which is HIFLD-geoplatform.opendata.arcgis.com. There's also a secure side to HIFLD that contains information. This does require a login and requires a separate process to be able to get access to. So I'll be showing you the HIFLD Open site. This is available publicly. You don't need a login to access it. So if you're to go to that site, it'll bring you to this landing page that you can see here. And so when you get to the landing page, you'll see that there's information on the events and updates for HIFLD Open, an option to provide some feedback, and then a data catalog. And I'll start with the data catalog because I think it's really a helpful resource. And if I go to this, it's going to bring me to a place where I can download an Excel spreadsheet. And this Excel spreadsheet actually gives you a full inventory of all the data sets that are stored on HIFLD Open, and there's quite a bit of information here. And so this can be a great way for you to just get a handle on what types of data sets are provided here. Look for some keywords that might be of interest to you. And it's a really good starting point to recommend that you take a look at. So I'll close this out and I'll go back to the main HIFLD site here. So as you scroll down this page a bit, you'll see Find Data. And so this is probably going to be your starting point. And here you can search to find data in HIFLD Open. You can either search by a keyword, you can search by geography, whether it's a state, a city, a county. And this is a great way to get started in looking for your open data. So that's an option to get started. You can also go here to Explore All Data, which will bring up a master list of all of the data sets that are stored in HIFLD Open. And if you go a little further down the page, you'll see the option here to explore categories. And this is nice because they've already pre-organized the data by discipline, by functional category. So you'll see that there's everything from data sets focused on agriculture to communications to food industry, on down into public health and water supply. So you've got a great way here to go in and look for data that's in a specific functional area. It's also a great starting point. So you'll see here, if I were to go into law enforcement, it's going to show me all of the data sets that are in that category. So you can see that there are 6 total results here. Just scrolling down, you'll see that there's a data type listed at the top of each item. So this is data. It's a feature layer, which is something that you can utilize within a GIS environment. We've got U.S. District Court jurisdictions. We've got local law enforcement locations. We've got prison boundaries, and you'll see here a brief description of what the data set is. You'll see some information on who provided it. So this was provided by Oak Ridge National Lab. You'll see when it was last updated, the number of rows, which is the number of records or features in the data set. So some good information here at a high level as you kind of go down the list. So you'll see again six data items that are specific to law enforcement. You've also got some interactive filters in the left column here where you can filter within these results. If you have a lot of results come up, you can filter even further. So you can filter out and look at specific content types. You can search by feature layers only, or tables, or feature map services. So you've got some options to filter there. You can also filter by the source in terms of who is the data publisher. You can see that there are various agencies and organizations listed there that contribute to HIFLD Open. And then you can also look by categories. So you can kind of drill down into some subcategories here. So again, these are just some good resources to help you find what you're looking for. So if I go back then to that main page that we started on, and I were just to search here and say, I want to go and I'll go look at hospitals. You can see it's going to interactively search as I type in, and I'll just go ahead and I'll search for hospitals. That's the data set that I'm looking for today. You'll see that 1 of 7 results. So I've got 7 total results here. And this first one looks pretty good. So this hospitals feature class from Oak Ridge National Labs. This is the feature class shapefile containing the locations of hospitals for 50 U.S. states, Washington, D.C., and so forth. So this seems to be a pretty good data set for what I'm looking for, which is national coverage for hospital locations. You can see there are over 7,500 total records in the database. That seems like a pretty good number. And there are a couple of other data sets here. Some that are specific to hospitals, some that just have hospitals and then either the description or the tag. So you'll see that there are some records that are maybe related, but that are not specifically hospital data sets. So that search was pretty successful. I'm going to go ahead and just click on this item so I can open up the hospitals feature service and see what's in there. And so at this point now, I am at the home page for one specific data item, which again is the hospitals data set that was published by Oak Ridge National Labs. And so you can see here there are a few things that are available when I open up that item. You can see that up top here is a map, and the map has some dots that depict where the hospital locations are. And this is an interactive map, so I can pan in this map and I can move things around. I can zoom in, I can zoom out. As I get a little closer, you can see that it's a little easier to see in some of these areas where we've got pretty dense point spacing. I can hover over records and get information about individual records. If I click on one, it'll pull up information. This is the Outer Banks Hospital in Nags Head, North Carolina. So you've got this option to explore your data from a spatial standpoint just within the main page for the item, which is really helpful, a really useful tool. I can also search data and maps. So if I were just to search Baltimore, for example, search Baltimore, and it'll show me any records that have Baltimore within them or that are in Baltimore. So you can see that this automatically filters for me. It'll filter against the map. It'll show me the records that are in Baltimore that have Baltimore somewhere within the item name. So that's really helpful as well. You can see this one is Baltimore. This is MedStar Franklin. So again, that's a really nice way to just be able to look at the data from a spatial perspective within that map window. And if you're just to click clear here, it'll clear your search and take you back out to to the default if you zoom out here. So then going down a little bit further, you can see that there's a detailed description of the item here. You can expand that and get a little more detail on where the information came from. So you can see here, this data set includes hospital facilities that are based on data that came from a number of various departments or federal sources. And you can see here that it also tells us that information is referenced in the source field. So some good information there on where the data came from and how it was developed, which is really helpful. As I go down, I can also see information on the attributes. So these attributes are going to be the information that is tied to each point location on the map. So you can see that I've got information on the address, the name, which is the alternative name, number of beds, the city, country. So this tells me all the fields that I'm going to be able to find in this layer, which are really helpful to be able to see visually. And we've also got some related data sets, and that looks pretty similar to what I saw when I did my original search for hospitals. So again, that's pretty useful. So then going back up here, as I get into the data tab, so right now we're looking at the overview, which is again pretty general information on the data set. I can go into the data and I can actually explore some of those attributes that I just mentioned. So you can see here that now I'm seeing the same data that I was seeing up here in map view. I'm seeing it in tabular format below. And maybe I'll go back here, and this also gives you some nice options to be able to filter your data. So if I were to go, and again, I want to filter by state, I can click on this little filter button that you see here, and I can go in, and it'll give me a filter up top. I can type in MD, hit OK, and it's going to filter my results. So you can see here that it took my results from about 7,500 down to 71 total records that are in Maryland. Again, searching against that state field. So that gives you a nice way to be able to look at that data interactively. And you can see here that now I can go down my list. I can look at all the records that are in Maryland. If I wanted to filter that even further, and I wanted to go and filter by not just state, but also by city, I can apply multiple filters. So I could then go into city, and I could type in Frederick, and it's going to filter even further for me. So then I can see that I've got FMH here in Frederick shown, and so it'll also do the same filter in the map view. So that's a nice way to be able to filter against one or more fields if you're trying to drill down into the data and see what's there in a little more detail. And to cancel these filters, all you have to do is to click on the little X, and it'll remove the filter from your data. And you can see then that everything is now shown here. So something else of interest, if you are in a record in the table and you hover over it, it's also going to make that record highlight in the map. So you can see here that just north of Washington, D.C. on the map, that MedStar Georgetown record is popping up. So that can help you to see where it is. And so again, that's just some useful tools for helping to explore your data within the item itself in HIFLD Open. And then you're probably asking, okay, well, it's great to be able to look at this data, but then how do I get it out of here? How do I go and do something with it? And so there are a couple ways that you can handle that. So here on the right side of the page, you see there's a download option. And so this is going to give you the option to take the data out of HIFLD Open and export it out as a standalone data set that you can use for your own purposes. And from there, you can manipulate it, you can perform analysis on it, you can store it on your desktop on a local class drive or a server. So you can take that data that you're seeing here and you're going to create a copy of it somewhere else. And you've got several options for exporting that out. You've got spreadsheet format, which you could use in Microsoft Excel or some other similar application. You've got KML, which is keyhole markup language, which is suitable for Google Earth. So you could open these files in Google Earth directly. And then you've got shape files and file geodatabases, which are both Esri formats that you can use to open the data in ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Pro, or other GIS applications, some open source as well. And you can see here that you've either got the option to take the full data set, or you can take your filtered data set. So if I have filters applied on the data, if I go with the filtered option, it's only going to return those records that were filtered in the window here. So that's useful if you're trying to only look at a subset of the data. Maybe I don't want to look at all 7,000 plus records in the country. I only want to look at Maryland hospitals. I can just put my Maryland filter on. I can export to a shapefile, and then I have a shapefile of just those Maryland records there, the 71 or so that we looked at earlier. So you can take that option, you can export it out, and it'll save it to your local drive, and then you can move it where you need to. And from there, you're off to the races, being able to use that within your GIS app of choice. You've also got the option here on the left. There's a small item that you'll note that says Create Map, and this is a great option if you are working in ArcGIS Online, and it does require you to be logged into ArcGIS Online. But if you hit this button, what it's going to do is it's going to create a map for you in your own ArcGIS Online login instance. So as you can see here, if I go to my FCC ArcGIS Online platform here, I'm logged in as Anthony Dowell. So I'll go back to my hospitals now, and I'll hit this and create map. And it's going to create a new map in ArcGIS Online for me. This is going to be editable, so I can add additional layers to it if I wanted to, whether those are from HIFLD Open or other places. I have the ability to go in and look at these layers, and then I can mark the map up. I can draw lines. I can draw polygons on my map, and then I can save. And if I go to save, you'll see here it's going to save my map, and map is now saved. So now I've got a map saved to my profile. And so you're probably wondering, well, where does it go? Where is it getting saved to? And again, if you're logged into your ArcGIS Online account, and I will cover ArcGIS Online in another session that'll show you how to get set up in ArcGIS Online, how to create your accounts and so forth. But if you're logged in, it's going to go ahead and it's going to save that map directly to your ArcGIS Online profile. So I'm logged in under FCC. So you'll see here, if I go over to my content now in ArcGIS Online, and this is my Frederick Community College ArcGIS Online where I was, again, logged in. You'll see that now I have a web map called Hospitals, and I can open that web map in ArcGIS Online. Again, this is within my organization. This is something that I have access to, and you can see here that it created a new web map for me. That new web map had the service, the web service, which is a feature service that's being hosted by HIFLD Open, and it's now in a web map, and I can take that. I can use this to build a more robust map that has maybe some other data that I wanted to show from other data sources. And then within ArcGIS Online, I've got the ability to make a new web application. I can add other layers. I can change my base maps. I can look at aerial imagery. I can do some analysis. So if I wanted to look at perhaps the density of hospitals in Maryland, I've got the option here to look at some patterns. So you can take that data directly from HIFLD Open and use it to create a brand new web map in your ArcGIS Online organization. So it's a really easy way to take that data and get access to it in ArcGIS Online. And again, that's in addition to the option to just export the data out of HIFLD Open and then use it within ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Desktop. So I'll go back to the main HIFLD page here. And I think that pretty much just wraps up the introduction to HIFLD Open. Again, there's a lot of data here. Going back to that list of categories, just to give you another overview, you can see that there are a tremendous number of data categories available. And if you go into any one of these, you'll probably find something that's interesting. So this is a great resource. The next open data portal that I'm going to provide an introduction to is the Maryland GIS Data Catalog, which is also known as Maryland IMap. And that can be reached at data.imap.maryland.gov. And I'll note that the Maryland IMap portal is going to look pretty similar to HIFLD Open, and that'll also look pretty similar to the FEMA Hub site. And the reason for that is because they are all built on the same Esri backbone. So if you get familiar with one of these sites, it's going to make it a lot easier to navigate in any number of these other data portals that are using the same technology on the back end. So just something to note. Those sort of things look pretty familiar in terms of navigating the site, navigating to data items, searching, and things like that. So just like you could in HIFLD Open, when you come to the main page, you can search open data, and you can search by a keyword, by a location, even by an address, and that'll help you to hone in your search a little bit. As I go down the page, you can see that there are featured interests, and this will give you some focused data map and app lists by discipline. So whether it's emergency management, which is going to take you to MEMA, environment, which will be focused on MDE, and some other options as well. So that gives you some filtered options by area of interest. And then much like you could in HIFLD Open, you can explore data categories, and a lot of these data categories look pretty similar. In this specific case, I'll look, maybe we'll start with military installations here. So I'll go to the military category, and you can see that there are two results here. So I've got state military installations and federal military installations. And again, this looks really similar to what you saw before, where you can see information on the data items that were returned. You can see a description, you can see the type of data set it is, when it was last updated, number of rows, number of records. So you've got some options there to be able to see some basic information about the layers. If we were to go in here and look at state military installations, again, you're going to have access to a lot of the same information that you saw in the HIFLD item page. So you've got the map that's interactive, where you can look at individual records, you can pan around, and you can interactively filter based on the map. You can see here, we've got the CPT Thomas Price Readiness Center. We've got the information about that center in terms of contact information, the address, the branch, and the military component. So some great information on each installation. And again, as we go down, we've got a detailed description. We've got information on the feature service layer link, which I'll touch on here in a moment. We've got information on the attributes and then our related data. So again, very similar. So I think once you get familiar with a couple of these portals, it'll be second nature to get through into them and to get access to the data that you need. And the feature service layer link is of interest from an ArcGIS Online standpoint, and I'll show you why. So if you were to copy this link address and I go back into my hospitals map, I can use that link to just add information in the add data function here. If I were to go then to add layer from the web, I can use that link directly as an ArcGIS server web instance, and I can just copy, paste, and I can add this layer. Let's see if that, and you can see here that my Maryland military installations pops up here in my map. It's now available. I'm pulling the information from Maryland IMap, so I haven't downloaded it. I haven't brought it into my local drive yet. I'm leveraging the hosted service, so I'm using the service published by the state, and it's now in my map. So now I've got a map that shows military installations and how. So again, you can use that really handy feature service layer link to help add layers in your ArcGIS Online map, and that can also be used to help you add data to ArcMap or to ArcGIS Pro. So pretty useful there. So again, you've got the same option here to create a map. So that would create a brand new ArcGIS Online map in my organization tied to my login with this layer. I can also favorite this, which is not an option in HIFLD Open, but it is an option in IMap. So you can tag favorites. So if you've got layers that are continually updated and you want to be able to easily get back to them, tagging them as a favorite will ask you for your login, but it will make it easy to get back to that specific data set. So again, going back to the main Maryland IMap page, I'll just note that all the data sets that are hosted in IMap are from either Maryland state agencies, from Maryland county governments, or municipal governments. So this is going to be data that's more specific to the state of Maryland or to your local geography, which could be of interest. And you've got some different categories here than you had in HIFLD Open. So you've got some things like planning and cadastre, for example, which will be your building footprints, your parcel and property lines, and so forth. You've got education, so you'll get information here on Maryland state schools, public schools, colleges and universities, and things of that nature. And you've also got imagery. And so if you go into imagery, that's going to give you information on remotely sensed data. So you'll get access here to your Maryland 6-inch imagery service, which will be a high-resolution ortho imagery data set, which is pretty nice to have as a backdrop for certain types of mapping exercises. So you've got some things available through IMap that you can't get through HIFLD and vice versa. So just a note on that. And then last but not least, I'm going to go to the FEMA Hub site. And so the FEMA Hub site is the FEMA Geospatial Resource Center. And this is kind of the landing page to get access to all things GIS related through FEMA. And this is a relatively new site, so some things are still under development here, but it's a great resource for getting access to FEMA data feeds, and FEMA maps and GIS apps that are hosted on the web. So if you go here, you'll see that you can explore some disaster-specific resources. So you've got specific pages for earthquakes, hurricanes, flooding. We've even got one for the ongoing pandemic, so you can get access to information on COVID-19 response. So there are some really nice resources that are already prepackaged for your use. You've got information on Lifeline dashboards, which are based on FEMA's Community Lifelines construct, and they display the status of the lifelines, and they're set up to work with various types of data, and not all of them are publicly available as it notes here. So some you might be able to access with public domain, some you might not, but there's some pretty interesting stuff there. You've got some year-round applications that show information on things like FEMA individual assistance. So these are pre-developed web applications that are leveraging FEMA's various data sets and services, which are really interesting, and on down. And then as you get closer to the bottom of the page here, you'll see data categories. So again, you can access information on FEMA acquired imagery, some of FEMA's predictive models, authoritative FEMA data, tools, live data feeds, and so forth. So I'm going to go back up to the top here, and I'm just going to go to the wildfires resources and just take a look at what that looks like. You can see here it does note the page is under construction, so some things are probably still being updated, but as it starts to load information specific to wildfires, you'll see that it pops up here with a really nice dashboard. And that dashboard shows information on the ongoing wildfire emergencies across the country. So information here on total burn area, residences destroyed, total incident personnel that are deployed. And so this is a live look at what's going on in the FEMA world in terms of wildfire disaster response. So this is really interesting. And again, this is interactive, so you can zoom in and around the map. You can explore the data in the map. So you can see here we've got hazardous wildlife conditions. It's got some information on what type of issue we have here. Some of these you probably have to research a bit to find out exactly what the references are. But again, some really interesting data that's available. And you can see that you've got information on public wildfire perimeters. We've got here we've got the pink polygons that show NOAA Now Coast fire weather and red flag warnings. So you've got various data sets that are shown here in the dashboard. So this is the live dashboard specific to wildfires that FEMA maintains. And then going on down here, we've got, again, some prepackaged applications that show in the Wildfire Incident Journal, which displays data from the USGS's geospatial multi-agency coordination on wildfire. We've got some outlooks that are done in conjunction with National Weather Service. So these are some pre-developed web applications that provide access to some really interesting data and analyses. And then here at the bottom, you've got access to data and imagery. And this is where you're going to find the data sets that you might want to be able to take and pull into your own web maps, or to export out to then use in our GIS desktop software. So I'll just go and take a look at current U.S. Wildfires here. So this will provide information on that data item, that data service that I mentioned. So you can see here that this is a layer that shows best known point and perimeter locations. So this is actually two separate layers, one point and one polygon for wildfire occurrences in the United States over the last week. This gives you some great information on the source of the data, how it was developed, how it was derived, some update frequency information. So you can see that this data set specifically is updated every 15 minutes using a live data feed. So this is a very recent and current data set that we're looking at here. There's information on the attributes. So this looks a little different than what you saw in the previous two portals, but in a lot of ways it's pretty similar. And then here you can see, because these are two separate data layers, it's not going to give me the option to download yet. I'll have to go to one of the two layers. So I either go to current incidents, which is our point data set showing a point representation of where those fires are, or parameters. So I'll just go into to incidents here. And that's going to drill down one more level. It's going to show me that current incidents point featured data set. And now you can see that I've got points on the map. These are showing the best known point locations of wildfire occurrences from the last week. And just like I could before, I can go here and I can explore the point locations. I can see that we've got a wildfire here, which is from USWA, so Washington State. So again, pretty similar to what we saw with the previous data item layout. So again, here I can also filter. So if I wanted to go in and I wanted to look at the tabular information and see what information is stored here, I've got access to the incident names and type categories. I can filter by any number of attributes. So pretty nice way to explore our data. And again, just like before, I can download data here, whether it's the full data set or filtered data into spreadsheet format, into KML or shapefile. And I can also up here access the ability to create a new web map or to favorite the data items. So again, as you can see, there's a lot to explore and a lot of data that's just openly available and able for you to download or to ingest into your web map. So a lot of great stuff. You can see here that even in the FEMA Geospatial Resource Center, they link to HIFLD Open. They link to some other great resources too, like the USGS National Map, which I didn't cover in detail, but also has some great data resources that are available for your use. So again, I recommend trying to get familiar with some of these data resources that are available. In the other sessions that I'm going to do on ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Desktop, ArcMap and ArcCatalog, and ArcGIS Pro, I will cover how to access some of these resources directly from those applications. So you can actually set up a way to link to these data resources and to pull in information from the services directly. So I'll cover how to do that in each of those sessions as well. And again, this is a great way for you to be able to develop your own activities and exercises and demonstrations, and also to take the existing exercises from the workbooks for GIS 1 and GIS 2 and tailor them to specific topics that you're interested in, whether they're current events, whether they're specific topics that you're covering in class, or whether you're just trying to tailor the information to be specific to your school or your students' locations and help them to maintain a high level of interest. So hopefully this has been a helpful introduction to some of the data resources that are available. And if you need to contact me with any questions, I'm always available. Again, this is Anthony Dowell with the Mid-Atlantic Center for Emergency Management and Public Safety. My email is adowell@frederick.edu, and I'd be happy to help out as needed. So thanks for tuning in, and we will talk next time.